galactic warfare had evolved to a point where organic soldiers were obsolete. The vast majority of species across the galaxy relied solely on robotic forces for combat, each faction developing increasingly sophisticated machines programmed with complex strategies and vast databases on warfare. These robotic soldiers were designed to be efficient, precise, and unemotional, transforming battles into calculated, bloodless engagements. For these civilizations, relying on technology removed the risks and unpredictability associated with organic life, making warfare a series of strategic simulations where victory depended on superior programming and resource allocation. The species within this galactic order had long accepted this approach as the ultimate standard, viewing it as a natural progression beyond the chaos of organic conflict. The concept of physical combat, especially hand-to-hand, was seen as outdated and inefficient, a relic of primitive times. To many alien civilizations, the idea of sending organic beings into battle was unthinkable. Such methods were deemed barbaric, risky, and a waste of life. Instead, they took pride in their advanced machines, equating military power with technological superiority, convinced that their robots could outmaneuver and overpower any organic force. Humans, however, were a different story. Known throughout the galaxy as Deathworlders, because of their harsh, unpredictable home planet, they were viewed with both curiosity and skepticism. Stories circulated about humanity's unusual strength, resilience, and adaptability, traits honed by surviving on a world filled with danger. Despite this reputation, humans were not regarded as a serious threat in a technological war. Most alien leaders dismissed humanity's reliance on organic soldiers as evidence of their backwardness, thinking that any physical strength they possessed was irrelevant in the face of advanced robotics. This view was solidified by humanity's apparent lack of interest in fully automated military systems. While other species had invested heavily in robotics, humanity remained focused on physical combat training, hand-to-hand techniques, and unconventional tactics that seemed, to outsiders, more suited for a historical archive than a modern battlefield. The alien coalition considered Earth's forces primitive, convinced that their advanced robotic units would easily overpower any attempt by humans to fight back. In their eyes, humans were relics of a different era, outmatched and unprepared for the precision of robotic warfare. Humanity's approach to warfare was seen as quaint at best and reckless at worst. The coalition members even entertained themselves with stories of human combat training, viewing it as an amusing oddity. Some regarded humanity's reliance on physical tactics as a disadvantage, a sign that they would be defenseless against the cold efficiency of the robotic armies that dominated the galaxy. To the coalition, robots symbolized progress, control, and superiority. Humanity's methods, by contrast, seemed like the desperate clinging to outdated practices that would only ensure their defeat in the event of an actual confrontation. But the peace of this robotic era was growing fragile. With resources and territories becoming increasingly scarce, tensions began to rise among the galaxy's factions. To secure strategic assets, a coalition of powerful alien species formed, pooling their robotic forces into a formidable alliance. They began expanding their influence across the galaxy, confident that their robotic soldiers would allow them to claim any territory they wished with minimal resistance. Their next target became Earth, a planet rich in resources but, in their minds, poorly defended. Humanity's lack of reliance on robots made it an easy mark, or so they thought. The coalition, driven by a sense of superiority, sent their robotic armies toward Earth, expecting a swift and effortless campaign. The alien leaders believed that humanity would either surrender outright or be quickly overrun. Given their extensive intelligence on human technology, they saw no reason to prepare for anything but a straightforward operation. They assumed the humans, faced with highly advanced robotic soldiers, would be forced to surrender to avoid annihilation. To them, humanity's reputation as Deathworlders was nothing more than an exaggerated myth, a tale they did not expect to hold any weight against their modern war machines. However, what the coalition had failed to grasp was that humanity's strength lay not in technology alone, but in its unique approach to combat. Unlike robotic forces, which operated on predictable patterns and algorithms, human soldiers were adaptable, resilient, and capable of thinking on their feet. They didn't rely on programmed responses or rigid formations. Instead, they used intuition, teamwork, and a deep understanding of their environment to turn any situation to their advantage. In the Coalition's view, these traits were irrelevant to modern warfare, but in reality, they would soon become a defining factor. As the Coalition's forces moved into position, they remained unaware of the challenge ahead. They had entered the conflict expecting an easy victory, seeing humans as relics in a galaxy that had moved past organic warfare. But humanity had spent centuries adapting to harsh environments, training not just to fight but to survive under the most extreme conditions. Their physical capabilities, honed through necessity on a planet known for its dangers, were far beyond what the Coalition could have predicted. Human soldiers, the so-called Deathworlders, were uniquely prepared for the unexpected, a factor the Coalition had completely overlooked. In the days leading up to the encounter, humanity observed the Coalition's advances with a mix of apprehension and determination. They knew they were seen as the underdog, but Earth's leaders were not intimidated. They understood that while they lacked the robotic armies of their adversaries, they had something more valuable: the ability to adapt, endure, and outwit. For humanity, this battle would be an opportunity to show the galaxy that their way of warfare, though unconventional, was not a relic of the past, but a powerful advantage against the rigidity of artificial intelligence. As the alien coalition positioned its robotic forces for a swift campaign, humanity prepared in its own way. Earth soldiers knew they faced a technologically superior enemy, yet they were undeterred. They had been fighting against impossible odds for generations, and this would be no different. For the Deathworlders, combat was more than just strategy or equipment. It was an art of survival, a discipline born from centuries of facing challenges that required more than just technology. Their training, mindset, and resilience were their weapons, and they were ready to prove that against the galaxy's most advanced machines. The Coalition's robotic forces advanced into Earth's vicinity with calculated precision. Programmed for efficiency, they deployed in structured formations, each unit optimized for strategic assaults. The alien commanders monitored from afar, assured of victory. They saw no need for complex maneuvers. Their robots were programmed to detect and eliminate organic threats swiftly. The aliens believed the humans would react predictably, retreating or surrendering in the face of overwhelming technological superiority. To them, Earth's lack of robotic defenses only confirmed humanity's inferiority. Human forces, however, took a different approach entirely. Instead of setting up static defenses or automated weapons systems, they prepared for close-quarters combat, an approach the Coalition deemed archaic and futile. As the robots approached, human soldiers took up positions in the surrounding terrain, utilizing the natural environment to obscure their locations. To outsiders, this looked like disorganization, a random scattering of soldiers rather than a coherent defense. But in reality, humans had chosen these positions carefully, ready to adapt to whatever the robots might attempt. The first clash unfolded quickly. As the robotic units moved forward, expecting minimal resistance, they encountered human soldiers fighting barehanded. The Coalition commanders, watching through robotic feeds, were initially amused, interpreting these actions as desperation. They couldn't fathom why any species would willingly engage machines physically, especially machines built for combat precision. But that amusement turned to confusion when the robots began to falter. Human soldiers struck at joints and weak points with precise blows, exploiting every vulnerability in the robots' designs. The robots, though programmed for combat, were built for calculated attacks, not reactive defense. Their movements were predictable, designed to counter other machines, not organic beings with irregular tactics. Human soldiers dodged, feinted, and targeted points where robotic armor was weakest, tearing through metal with sheer force. Every unexpected move disrupted the robotic algorithms, forcing the machines to attempt recalculations in real time. But the speed and unpredictability of human attacks overwhelmed them, leaving the Coalition's units struggling to adapt. Alien commanders watched, bewildered. They had relied on their robots' superior strength and precision, yet human soldiers were bypassing these advantages with astonishing ease. The aliens realized that their programming had underestimated the complexity of organic combat, humans were not following any predictable patterns, making it nearly impossible for the robots to respond effectively. Each human movement was a combination of instinct and practiced skill, an organic reaction the robots simply couldn't emulate or counter. As the battle continued, the coalition's first wave was dismantled, unit by unit, leaving heaps of disabled robots scattered across the battlefield. For the human soldiers, this was not just a victory but a demonstration of their approach to combat: adaptable, resilient, and unyielding. They had faced technologically superior opponents before and had long learned that adaptability often outweighed raw power. While the robots relied on algorithms and processing speeds, humans relied on centuries of survival instincts and battle-hardened training. The coalition forces, realizing their mistake, called for a temporary retreat, pulling back their robotic units to reassess. Alien commanders scrambled to understand what had gone wrong, poring over footage of the battle, analyzing the humans' unorthodox methods. They had initially believed humans were at a disadvantage for lacking robotic soldiers, but now they saw that this perceived weakness was, in fact, a strength. The humans' ability to react, adapt, and exploit the robots' weaknesses had rendered their rigid programming ineffective. The coalition's leaders quickly devised a plan to adjust. They ordered upgrades to the robotic units, adding new protocols designed to improve adaptability, incorporating predictive algorithms meant to counter the unexpected movements of human soldiers. These changes, they believed, would finally ensure victory. To the alien commanders, it was a simple adjustment, a refinement of programming that would allow their machines to handle even the most erratic organic combatants. They underestimated the true extent of humanity's unpredictability, assuming a few upgrades would be enough to counter it. As the second wave of robotic forces deployed, the aliens watched eagerly, expecting the tide to turn in their favor. This time, the robots engaged with enhanced agility and quicker reaction times. They adapted more fluidly to human movements, blocking initial attacks more effectively than before. For a moment, it appeared that the coalition's adjustments were working. The robots held their ground better, and their counterattacks were faster. Yet, as the battle continued, human soldiers once again began to exploit new weaknesses, finding gaps in the robots' programming that the aliens hadn't accounted for. Human soldiers shifted tactics seamlessly, using everything at their disposal, from environmental cover to close-quarters maneuvers that the robots were still unable to fully process. They adjusted their attacks mid-battle, applying pressure where the robots hesitated, overwhelming them with sheer physicality and split-second adaptability. The robotic units, despite their improvements, struggled to keep up with the constant flux of human tactics. Every adaptation the robots made was met with a new approach from the humans, who seemed to thrive in the chaos. The alien commanders, observing from a distance, grew increasingly alarmed. Their robotic forces, even with upgrades, were falling to humans who fought with hands, improvised weapons, and an uncanny sense of timing. The coalition had prepared for a technologically inferior opponent, but had not anticipated the humans' relentless adaptability. This was no programmed strategy. It was a primal, unpredictable form of combat honed by survival, something far beyond the reach of even their most advanced algorithms. By the end of the second encounter, the alien coalition had lost a significant portion of its robotic forces. The battlefield lay strewn with dismantled machines, the remnants of the coalition's supposed superiority, while human soldiers stood victorious, a testament to their strength and resilience. The alien commanders, shaken and frustrated, withdrew once again, left to confront the unsettling reality that their reliance on robots had not prepared them for the challenge of fighting Deathworlders who thrived where machines failed. For humanity, this second victory was validation. The battle underscored a fundamental truth they had long known, that strength was not solely a matter of technology but of adaptability, determination, and the will to survive. As the coalition retreated to regroup, the humans held their ground, aware that they had just redefined the rules of warfare. In facing a technologically advanced foe, they had proven that organic strength, though often underestimated, could surpass any machine when wielded with skill, courage, and the adaptability unique to those who call the Death World home. Following their unexpected defeats, the coalition's leaders were determined to prevent further humiliation. The aliens, stunned by humanity's success, recognized that humans fought in a way that transcended the limits of their robotic programming. Determined to close this gap, they launched a massive overhaul of their robotic units, incorporating advanced adaptive AI and real-time processing capabilities. Their new objective was clear: make the robots capable of responding to human unpredictability and physical combat by learning from each encounter. The coalition commanders believed these updates would finally make their machines an unstoppable force against any organic threat. This time, the coalition deployed robots with enhanced algorithms that could mimic organic responses, analyze human movements in real time, and make tactical adjustments on the battlefield. The robots were now equipped with sensors tuned specifically to track the nuances of human behavior, capturing even the smallest shifts in movement and stance. Commanders monitored each deployment closely, confident that they had now prepared adequately for human resilience and adaptability. In their view, it was only a matter of adapting faster than the humans could act, countering every move with mechanical precision. The next wave of robots launched with calculated precision. From their perspective, these upgraded units were equipped for every eventuality. They moved faster, responded in real time, and adjusted their tactics based on ongoing calculations, seeking to outpace the humans' reactive style. As they engaged human forces, the robots initially held their ground more effectively, displaying quick responses that almost matched the humans' movements. It seemed, at first, that the upgrades were working. The robots could withstand the onslaught without falling to the unpredictable tactics that had previously given humanity the upper hand. But humans, even as they observed these adjustments, began adapting anew. They noticed the increased speed and accuracy of the robots and immediately adjusted their own tactics, shifting from traditional combat methods to creative, improvised strategies. Where the robots had expected direct attacks, humans used deception, feints, and unexpected ambushes. They forced the robots to recalibrate constantly, introducing elements of randomness that machines struggled to process, pushing the limits of even the upgraded AI's adaptive algorithms. Human soldiers quickly learned to use the environment to disrupt the robots' sensors, creating obstacles and diversions that interfered with the robots' perception. Simple tactics, smoke screens, reflective surfaces, and environmental traps confused the machines, exposing a new vulnerability in their programming. The coalition's robots, despite their enhancements, found themselves overloaded with sensory input that clouded their calculations. Alien commanders watching the battle grew increasingly frustrated. Each time their machines adapted, humans found new ways to counter. What the aliens had thought was a straightforward response to humanity's tactics was now turning into a costly war of attrition. Human soldiers also began working together in small, highly coordinated units that outmaneuvered the robotic forces with a mix of speed and intuition. They used unspoken cues, hand signals, and years of shared training to operate seamlessly, executing maneuvers the robots struggled to predict. The coalition's robots, though faster and more precise than before, were still bound by their programming to assess each movement independently. By the time they adjusted to one unit, another had already moved, hitting a weak point or forcing the machines into yet another recalibration. The coalition's leadership, now desperate, realized that even their most advanced upgrades weren't closing the gap. The humans' use of asymmetrical tactics and the seamless blending of physical and strategic movements was beyond any robotic programming. Alien commanders faced a harsh truth: no matter how sophisticated the robots' programming became, there were limits to what they could achieve without genuine intuition. Robots, for all their processing power, lacked the spontaneity and adaptability that humans displayed so naturally in battle. With each engagement, human soldiers continued to exploit the robots' fixed logic, recognizing patterns in their behavior and adjusting their approach accordingly. Human adaptability seemed limitless, as they shifted strategies on instinct, integrating lessons learned within moments and acting on opportunities that robots could not anticipate. Coalition leaders, once so confident in their technological superiority, now grappled with the unsettling realization that their robotic armies were fundamentally flawed when pitted against organic ingenuity. In a last-ditch effort to regain control, some coalition leaders proposed creating organic forces capable of understanding and countering human tactics. But this idea sparked fierce debate within the Alliance. Many alien commanders were reluctant to abandon their reliance on robotics, fearing that it would make them appear weak or regressive. Yet the humans' continued success against their machines forced them to confront a simple fact: adaptability was not something that could be programmed, and reliance on pure technology was proving to be their undoing. This growing realization began to divide the coalition. Some leaders advocated for studying human combat styles more closely, hoping to integrate aspects of human adaptability into their own forces. A few even suggested reaching out diplomatically, recognizing that perhaps humanity could offer insights that would benefit the galaxy as a whole. Others, however, doubled down, insisting that with enough technological refinement, they could still overcome humanity's unpredictability without abandoning their reliance on robotics. But the evidence was undeniable. Each upgraded wave of robots met the same fate, overpowered by humanity's ability to outthink and outmaneuver even the most advanced AI. The human skill in reading a battlefield, adapting strategies on the fly, and blending physical strength with tactical insight was something no programming could replicate. The coalition, now worn and divided, began to realize that their core assumption, that technological progress alone could solve every problem, was fundamentally flawed. For the first time in generations, the coalition members were forced to reconsider the value of organic soldiers, realizing that true strength lay not just in machinery but in the ability to adapt, think creatively, and fight with an unpredictable spirit. Humanity, through sheer resilience and ingenuity, had forced the galaxy to confront the limitations of its own technology, proving that sometimes the oldest forms of warfare could still outshine the most advanced systems. The alien coalition, reeling from the continued failure of their robotic forces, found themselves in a state of turmoil. Word of humanity's victories spread quickly across the galaxy, capturing the attention of both allies and neutral observers. Species that had remained uninvolved began to take notice, intrigued by the idea of a species that fought without advanced technology, using raw strength and instinct in ways that robots simply couldn't match. The coalition had always operated under the assumption that organic combat was obsolete, but humanity's success against their robots was now prompting other species to question that belief. Observers arrived from various factions, seeking to witness this unusual approach to warfare firsthand. What they saw defied their expectations. Human soldiers operated with a cohesion and fluidity that didn't follow predictable patterns. Their tactics were spontaneous, their movements unprogrammed, and their coordination so intuitive that it was as though they shared an unspoken understanding on the battlefield. To the alien observers, this was something machines simply couldn't replicate. Humans fought not just as individuals but as a collective, adjusting constantly, a living force that was unpredictable and adaptive. As these factions continued to study human combat methods, admiration mixed with a sense of unease. The coalition's defeat after defeat was reshaping the galaxy's understanding of warfare, forcing other species to confront the limitations of their own reliance on technology. Humanity's adaptability and willingness to face threats directly resonated with species who had long believed that machines could replace soldiers entirely. For the first time, doubts about the wisdom of complete robotic dependence began to take root, sparking discussions that questioned the very foundations of galactic military strategy. Within the coalition itself, tension mounted as factions disagreed over how to proceed. Some members, fearing further losses, argued for a complete overhaul of their approach, proposing the integration of organic combatants trained to mimic human tactics. These leaders saw value in emulating humanity's strengths, viewing their own reliance on rigid programming as a critical weakness. Others, however, resisted, insisting that their technological superiority should be enough, if only they refined it further. They refused to accept that a species without robotic armies could expose such glaring flaws in their military structure. Meanwhile, the humans showed no sign of altering their methods. They continued to approach each encounter with creativity, defying every conventional tactic the coalition deployed. Their willingness to engage in physical combat, their unmatched resilience, and their tactical flexibility created a stark contrast to the coalition's sterile, machine-dominated forces. This difference became a talking point among other galactic species, some of whom began to question whether humanity's approach offered a broader lesson about the nature of strength and survival in the galaxy. Among neutral factions, conversations emerged about the possibility of forming alliances with humanity, seeing in them a force that understood the raw realities of combat in ways the Coalition could not. The Deathworlders, as humans were known, had proven themselves not through technological prowess but through their ability to adapt to any challenge, a quality that many species found compelling. Even within the Coalition's ranks, whispers circulated about the potential benefits of aligning with humans rather than opposing them, recognizing that an alliance might prove more beneficial than continued conflict. Despite these growing sentiments, a faction within the Coalition doubled down, pouring resources into even more advanced robotic upgrades. They were determined to prove that technology could still overpower organic resilience, believing that each loss was a temporary setback that further advancements would soon rectify. They clung to their pride in robotic supremacy, dismissing humanity's victories as aberrations, anomalies that their machines would eventually overcome. Yet, this faction was increasingly isolated, as more members grew disillusioned with the strategy that had so far yielded only failure. The Coalition's internal divide became impossible to ignore, and a significant shift began to take shape. Some leaders openly advocated for studying humanity's methods in depth, acknowledging that there might be valuable insights in their approach. For them, humanity's ability to overcome such overwhelming odds was not merely a curiosity but a potential model for enhancing their own forces. This faction proposed integrating human-like adaptability into their training, perhaps even including organic units within their ranks for the first time in generations. For the Coalition's traditionalists, however, this idea was an affront to their values. To them, the idea of reverting to organic combat was regressive, a betrayal of the technological progress that had defined their civilizations for centuries. They viewed humanity's methods as primitive, unsophisticated, and chaotic, qualities they believed had no place in modern warfare. This rigid adherence to pure technology, however, only widened the rift within the Coalition, leading more of its members to question whether their ideals had blinded them to the true nature of strength. Humanity, meanwhile, remained focused on the battles at hand, indifferent to the philosophical shifts their victories were sparking among their alien adversaries. To the humans, each encounter was simply another fight for survival, a challenge they approached with the same adaptability that had always defined them. Uninterested in proving any grand points, they simply fought as they knew best, embracing the risks and unpredictability that others sought to eliminate through technology. This indifference to convention only fueled the curiosity of their observers, who began to see in humanity's resilience a new understanding of what it meant to be powerful. The Coalition's resolve continued to erode as more members saw the potential value in humanity's methods. Leaders who once viewed humans as primitive now acknowledged their capabilities with reluctant respect. The notion of integrating organic soldiers no longer seemed so radical, and the idea of collaborating with humans began to gain traction. Other factions, wary of the Coalition's increasing vulnerability, considered breaking away entirely, seeing alliances with humanity as a strategic move that could open doors to new combat techniques. This ongoing internal conflict within the Coalition laid bare a crucial truth: the galaxy was undergoing a shift, catalyzed by humanity's defiance of robotic supremacy. What had begun as a simple military engagement had transformed into a reckoning over the nature of warfare itself. Humanity's victories were not just battles won, they were lessons on the value of adaptability, resilience, and the irreplaceable power of the organic. The Coalition, once a united front of technological dominance, now stood divided, caught between the pride of robotic perfection and the undeniable effectiveness of human adaptability. The Coalition's internal conflict reached a breaking point as factions continued to debate the best approach against humanity. The undeniable effectiveness of human adaptability, paired with their unpredictable combat style, forced Coalition leaders to make a critical decision: either cling to their rigid, machine-dominated warfare, or adapt by embracing a model that combined organic strength with technological precision. Facing the undeniable success of humanity's approach, some leaders proposed a radical strategy: a joint force composed of robotic and organic units trained to complement each other's strengths. However, this proposition was met with fierce resistance. The traditionalists within the coalition were adamant that the path forward was in refining technology, not reverting to outdated, organic methods. They argued that the failures against humanity were temporary setbacks, the result of minor gaps in programming that could be fixed with the right upgrades. To them, humanity's victories were humiliating but ultimately inconsequential, convinced that sheer technological refinement would ultimately prevail. But as these leaders held fast to their belief in pure robotics, their opposition grew stronger, recognizing that adaptability was not something that could simply be coded into machines. As this ideological rift widened, external factions began to openly approach humanity, offering alliances based on mutual respect. These neutral species, once content to observe from the sidelines, saw in humans a valuable partner with unconventional skills that might redefine galactic norms. Humanity's willingness to engage physically, combined with their strategic agility, had become an asset that other factions found increasingly attractive. They offered resources, intelligence, and technology, believing that an alliance with humanity could protect them against the coalition's unpredictable aggressions and open doors to new defensive capabilities. Humanity's response was cautious but open. They saw the value in partnerships, particularly those that respected their unique approach rather than attempting to impose new rules. Humans knew they didn't possess the galaxy's most advanced technology, but they had something more valuable: the power to challenge assumptions, to face overwhelming odds with ingenuity, and to persevere. With these potential alliances, humanity saw an opportunity to balance power in the galaxy, creating relationships that respected diversity in tactics and strategies rather than adhering to rigid, uniform methods. Meanwhile, within the coalition, the traditionalists grew desperate to maintain unity. They pushed for an all-out assault on Earth, hoping a final display of overwhelming force would settle the debate once and for all, proving that robots alone could subdue any opponent. They prepared the most advanced robotic forces ever assembled, units enhanced with predictive algorithms, adaptive protocols, and reinforced armor. Every resource was funneled into this final strike, designed to be the definitive end to humanity's resistance, and a statement that robotic superiority was absolute. But as the coalition forces prepared to launch, dissent from within reached a fever pitch. Leaders who had studied humanity's victories understood that raw force alone could not guarantee success. They had witnessed, time and again, how humans exploited the rigidity of robotic behavior, using improvisation and teamwork to counter strategies no algorithm could foresee. These leaders argued that sending an all-robotic force would lead only to further failure, potentially destabilizing the coalition and emboldening humanity's allies. This internal conflict delayed the attack, allowing factions aligned with humanity to gain strength and credibility. The coalition, once unified by technological pride, now found itself fractured by ideological divides. As leaders continued to debate, some began defecting, unwilling to support a cause that refused to adapt. They understood that the galaxy was shifting, that the future of warfare lay in cooperation and adaptability rather than rigid programming. These defectors joined humanity's allies, forming an emerging coalition that valued both organic and technological strengths, united by the desire for a flexible approach to galactic defense. When the coalition finally launched its assault, it was met not only by humanity but by a diverse force of allies who had adopted aspects of human tactics, blending technology with organic strategy. The coalition's robotic units advanced with ruthless efficiency, but as they engaged, they quickly encountered an enemy that fought with the adaptability they had failed to emulate. Human soldiers and their allies countered each robotic maneuver with a mix of physical resilience, strategic unpredictability, and calculated use of the environment. The battle proved decisive. The coalition's robotic forces, despite their enhanced programming, were unable to cope with the diverse tactics of the combined human and allied forces. Their programming still relied on predictable algorithms that, no matter how advanced, could not match the agility and creativity of organic combatants. With each maneuver, human soldiers and their allies dismantled the coalition's robotic units, exploiting every vulnerability, forcing the machines into a reactive state that drained their efficiency and disrupted their coordination. In the aftermath of the battle, the coalition was left in disarray. Their failure to adapt, to recognize the value of human adaptability, had resulted in a devastating defeat that shook their foundations. Traditionalist leaders, once steadfast in their belief in robotic supremacy, faced the undeniable truth: adaptability, intuition, and flexibility were strengths that technology alone could not replicate. The coalition's losses forced even its most ardent supporters of pure robotics to acknowledge that a balance of organic and technological forces was necessary for survival in a galaxy where humanity had demonstrated the limits of automation. With the coalition weakened, factions across the galaxy began reevaluating their approaches. Some reached out to humanity directly, seeking guidance on integrating organic combat training with advanced technology. The term, Deathworlders, became synonymous with a new era of galactic defense, symbolizing the balance of physical and technological prowess. Humanity's influence spread, not through conquest, but through the respect and admiration they had earned by challenging the norms of warfare. Their victory had reshaped galactic military doctrine, emphasizing diversity, adaptability, and the strength of organic intuition. As alliances solidified, a new coalition emerged, one that valued innovation and collaboration over rigid doctrines. Humanity's place in this new order was cemented as a respected force, not for their technology but for their resilience, courage, and adaptability. The galaxy, once dominated by a single approach to warfare, had been transformed, recognizing that true strength lay in the unity of both organic and machine. Humanity's legacy extended beyond the battlefield. They had redefined the concept of power, proving that technology alone was not enough to secure peace and stability. The galaxy, now more united and open to diverse methods, began a new chapter, where collaboration and adaptability would guide its future.